45 years is a long time. It's longer than some trees take to grow from a tiny seed into a canopy that shades the whole yard. I had not taken off my wedding ring in 45 years, not once, not to wash dishes, not to garden. It was like the setting sun. It was always there, a warm glow at the end of my day, steady and sure. I didn't take it off even in the hospital when they asked me to remove my jewelry before surgery. I told the nurse that ring had not left my finger since the day it was placed there, and it was not leaving now. She let it stay. That is the kind of woman I was about that ring. It was a promise kept in gold. But life has a way of changing, like the seasons turning from summer to a crisp, cold autumn. Last spring, I finally took it off, not because I wanted to, but because my finger had swollen. My doctor said it needed to come off before it became a medical problem, like a vine getting too tight around a branch. I sat at my kitchen table with a little soap and water. The afternoon light was pouring in, gold and thick like honey. I worked it loose for the first time in 45 years. It resisted at first, like it didn't want to let go of the skin it knew. And when it finally came free, I felt lighter, but also strange, like a lighthouse that suddenly lost its lantern. I held it up to the light the way you do when you are looking at something familiar, yet suddenly new. Something you have worn so long it has become part of your own skin, a part of your history. I was looking for the scratch I made back in '82 when I caught it on the garden gate. But that is when I saw it, tucked away where only the heart was supposed to feel it. On the inside of the band in small, careful letters, there was a name I didn't recognize. It wasn't my name. It wasn't Mary. It was something else entirely. A secret hidden in plain sight for nearly half a century. I am 83 years old, and I want to tell you what happened next, because I think someone watching this needs to hear it. Don't go anywhere. My husband Raymond and I were married in the spring of 1978. I was 38 years old, not a young bride by the standards of my time, but I was certain in a way that young brides rarely are. Our love wasn't a sudden spark, it was a steady flame. Raymond was 41, steady, dependable, the kind of man who showed up without being asked. He was not a romantic man in the theatrical sense. He didn't need the spotlight to show he cared. He did not bring flowers or write letters. His love was expressed in actions so quiet you could miss them if you were not paying attention. He filled my car with gas before long trips without mentioning it, like a lighthouse keeping its light fueled for the ships. He replaced the bulb in the reading lamp by my chair before I noticed it had gone dim. He saw the shadows before I did. He remembered the name of every person I had ever mentioned, even in passing. He kept my world safe in his memory. I thought I knew this man completely. The ring had been his mother's idea. She was the one who saw the future in that circle of gold. She had passed before our wedding, and Raymond had kept her jewelry in a small wooden box in his wardrobe. He told me one evening that she had left a ring for the woman he married, a piece of her heart to be passed to mine. He said he wanted to have it engraved before the ceremony. He wanted to make it ours, formally and forever. He handled the engraving himself, and I never thought to look inside before I wore it. Why would I? Trust is a quiet room you live in. I assumed it said what all wedding rings say. A date, initials, perhaps a single word like always or forever. Forever or always. Or simply our names pressed together in that small circle of gold, like two streams becoming one river. I wore it for 45 years without ever looking inside. 45 years of absolute certainty. Certainty that I knew everything that ring held. I thought the gold was the only secret, but there was another name waiting in the dark. A name that changed 45 years of absolute certainty into a mystery I never saw coming. Who was she, Raymond? The name I saw engraved inside was Eleanor, not my name. My name is Vivian. It was a word that didn't fit into the story of my life. I sat at that kitchen table for a very long time, holding a ring I had worn for 45 years and staring at a name that belonged to someone else. My first thought was practical the way my thoughts have always been practical. Perhaps it was his mother's name, and the ring had belonged to her. I held that explanation for about 30 seconds before I remembered something. Raymond's mother's name was Ruth, not Eleanor, not her. I called my daughter that afternoon. She is 51 now, the oldest of our 3 children, the one who inherited her father's steadiness. She has her mother's tendency to pursue a thing until it makes sense, until every piece of the puzzle finds its home. I told her what I had found. She was quiet for longer than I expected. Then she said, "Mama, I need to tell you something I have been carrying for a very long time." What she told me took the floor out from under everything I thought I was standing on. It was like the ground itself had turned to sand. Eleanor was a woman Raymond had been in love with before he met me. Not a casual affection, but a serious and sustained love. A love that had ended badly and left him changed in ways he apparently never fully recovered from, even in the warmth of our years together. My daughter had found letters years ago tucked inside a book on the highest shelf of his study. Secrets kept where the light rarely reaches. She had read enough to understand what they were, and then she had put them back and never told a soul, not even me. She had been 16 years old, and she did not know what to do with what she had found. I asked her why she had never told me. She said, "Because you loved him so completely, Mama, and I did not want to be the one to take that from you." I understood that protection. I loved my daughter for it, and I understood it, but it did not make the sitting any easier. I want to be careful about what I say next, because this is the part that matters most. What I found did not erase 45 years. I want to be very clear about that. Raymond and I built a real life together, a foundation of stones, each one laid with care over nearly half a century. 3 children, a home, decades of ordinary, extraordinary days that belonged to us and nobody else. They were ours. But I spent the weeks after finding that name doing something I had never done before. I sat with the discomfort instead of moving through it. I did not call everyone I knew. I did not perform my grief for an audience. It was a private garden I had to walk through alone. I sat with it the way you sit with something that deserves your full and undivided attention, like a prayer whispered in the dark. The first thing I understood was that Raymond had loved me, not as a consolation, not as a replacement, but genuinely. He loved me in the way that a man loves the life he has actually chosen to build, the life he put his roots into every single day. The ring was not a confession of regret. It was something more complicated than that, a heavy truth wrapped in gold. It was a man carrying a grief he had never fully set down and choosing to keep it close in the one place he thought nobody would ever look. He kept it in the small circle of our marriage, a place so familiar he thought it would remain a secret forever. The second thing I understood was about myself. I had spent 45 years being so certain of what I knew that I had never thought to look inside. Certainty can be its own kind of blindness. We stop looking at the things we believe we already understand. We miss the secrets in the light. And sometimes the most important truths are sitting right there on our own finger waiting for us to finally pay attention. The third thing I understood took the longest to arrive. Forgiveness is not the same as approval. I did not approve of the secret Raymond kept. I will not pretend otherwise, and I am too old to dress things up in comfortable language. But forgiveness is something you do for yourself, not for the person who is gone and cannot receive it. It's a gift you give to your own heart. Carrying 45 years of love and then adding a layer of bitterness on top of it was a weight I was not willing to carry at 83 years old, so I chose not to. Not quickly, not easily, not without sitting at that kitchen table many more times than I can count, but I chose it, one quiet breath at a time. The fourth thing I did was talk to my daughter honestly for the first time in years. Not about Raymond, but about us, about the space between mother and child, about all the things we had been careful around each other about for decades, the eggshells we had both been walking on without even knowing it. She had been carrying that 16-year-old secret for 35 years, a heavy stone in the pocket of her heart that I never knew was there. And when we finally laid it all out on the table between us, something shifted in the room, like a window being opened after a long, cold winter. Something that had been slightly off between us for years, without either of us being able to name it. Now, it finally had a name and a release. We sat together until it was dark outside and neither of us moved to turn on the light. The darkness was enough. The understanding was enough. The ring is in a small dish on my windowsill now. I do not wear it anymore. Not because of Eleanor, but because of something simpler. My finger is more comfortable without it, and at 83 years old, comfort is something I have finally decided I am allowed to choose. I look at it sometimes when the light comes through the window. A gold band, thin, worn, smooth from 45 years of living inside it. It holds everything my marriage was. The love that was real, and the grief that was hidden, and the life we built together anyway. All of it pressed into one small circle. A life's worth of moments, heavy and light, all contained in that sliver of gold. I do not think Raymond was a dishonest man. I think he was a human man. And human beings carry things they do not always know how to put down. What I know at 83 that I did not know at 38 is this. You can love someone completely and still not know everything they are carrying. And that is not a failure of love. That is just the truth of how close two people can actually get. Two souls, two stories. We spend our whole lives trying to close that last small distance between ourselves and another person. A distance that is meant to be there. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do is make peace with the fact that the distance never fully closes. The mystery is part of the beauty. That the mystery of another person is part of what makes them worth loving in the first place. It keeps the heart curious and kind. So I let the ring sit in its dish, and I let the past sit where it belongs. I am Vivian, and I am finally at rest with the unknown. If this reached something you have been sitting with quietly, subscribe to this channel. Every week we bring you the stories that took a lifetime to be ready to tell. Leave a comment below telling me something you found out late in life that rearranged everything you thought you knew. I want to hear your truth. I will be reading every single one. And I promise you, whatever you found, you are not the only one who has had to sit at a kitchen table. You are not alone in learning to make peace with it. We'll find the way together. I'll see you in the next part.